Honor Brewery in Fairfax. So if you need a place to come hang out, watch the game because you're not going to Atlanta, come hang out with us. Lynnell, this game is, if there was ever a such thing as a bullpen game in the NFL, that would be what today is offensively for the Commanders. No Jaden Daniels, though we did get good news suggesting that he's going to play next week against the Los Angeles Chargers. No Terry McLaurin. We don't know what the timetable is for Terry. No Noah Brown, no John Bates. A lot of the key players offensively for the Commanders are not going to be playing today. I think that puts a lot of pressure on Cliff Kingsbury.
I think it does, and I was going to start with that as well, Denton. I feel like this is one of those opportunities where you earn your right to be, the top head coaching candidate coming up this offseason. I know he was someone that garnered a lot of interest. It's easy, I guess, to put a game plan together when you've got a bona fide top 5 cat at the position in Jaden Daniels. This is now his second week without him, but I will say this. Every time we've seen Marcus Mariota take the field over the last year and a half, it's been nothing but positives. Heard Earl talking about it on Countdown to Kickoff. Can he put together 2 consecutive good starts in a row? Because he was excellent last week against the Raiders, and I think you know this as well as anybody, Denton. Complimentary football going to be the name of the game this weekend against the Atlanta Falcons. You mentioned we are the walking wounded. It means you're going to need all 3 phases to step up here.
When it comes to complementary football, a lot of that is the run game, right? And that's one of the things that against the Green Bay Packers a couple weeks ago did not have last week. Really, really good team effort. Bill was involved. Jeremy McNichols was involved. Chris Rodriguez was involved. You got the 3-headed monster back there in the backfield. How do you take that approach today against an Atlanta team that is back against the wall? They got their ass kicked last week. And, we saw that game. We watched that game. It was terrible. They didn't look good at all. They got whipped by a team in Carolina that's not very good. So they're going to be itching for a W today and coming after a backup quarterback. How do you make Mariota's life a little bit easier?
I think you hit it right on the head right there, too, Denton. This is a desperate football team, talking about the Atlanta Falcons. They didn't have a lot of offensive success last week, to say the least, getting shut out. Michael Penix throwing 2 interceptions. But for Washington's offense to try and continue to help Marcus Mariota get eased into this thing, I think you mentioned it, the running game, getting it going. Last week, what I really loved that Washington was able to do was get Deebo Samuel involved in the running game as well. The quarterback was involved. You saw all 3 of the running backs get touches. I think spreading the wealth is going to be huge when it comes to this run game. But what I want to see this weekend, how do you build off of your rushing attack, right? Last weekend, it was kind of bully ball. You're punching people in the face. Can we get the play-action passing game going off of it this weekend? No John Bates for the second straight week, so I expect more 12 and 13 personnel. Can Cliff Kingsbury sneak a Ben Sinnott or a Colson Yankoff up the sideline to try and generate some explosive plays? Because I think that's the other key too, Denton. When you're playing that exotic smash-mouth football style, you got to have some explosives sprinkled in there so you don't have to go 15 and 16 plays.
Who starts on the outside opposite of Deebo? I assume that Deebo is going to get a lot more reps at the outside, maybe a little bit less dynamic than what we saw last year, though I wouldn't mind getting him involved in the run game as well. But it's a lot easier to do that when you have Terry McLaurin on the outside because he's the definitive number 1. You don't have that now. So who is going to get that other opportunity? I know they like Jalen Lane. My boy Luke McCaffrey scored a touchdown for the first time in his NFL career last year. But I'm very curious to see what that decision-making is like. Do you go with Chris Moore? Do you go with one of the guys that you bring up off of the practice squad? I know there's a lot of guys on the practice squad that people like, but I think it's a lot easier said than done to hey, I like this guy in training camp. What's he going to do in September against the Falcons team that, again, is hungry?
So to answer your last question, Tay Martin was the receiver that was elevated off of the practice squad yesterday. So I assume he is going to be active and be Washington's 5th wide receiver. They only have 4 guys healthy on the active right now until they brought him up yesterday. So I think he'll maybe get some opportunities in there as well. All 5 of these guys are going to play. I think we know that. But as far as who's on the outside, you mentioned Chris Moore, the most experienced guy in this wide receiver room outside of Deebo Samuel, a guy that really didn't have a very good training camp in preseason, if we're being frank about it. Had a good catch against Green Bay, had a good catch against the Giants as well. He's going to get his opportunities. But I'll be honest, Luke McCaffrey is the guy that I am circling here. He's got the physical profile to play on the outside and beat press man coverage, something you may see a lot against the Falcons. So he's going to be, critical in terms of making contested catches. But your guy Jalen Lane out of Virginia Tech too, man. Can he be a guy this weekend that earns the respect of NFL defenses by stressing defenses vertically?
Yeah, they've said a lot of really positive things about Jalen Lane after last week. And obviously he took a punt back to the house, so people love what he brings on special teams. But Cliff Kingsbury said a lot of positive things about him in terms of where they want to use him offensively and getting him more incorporated. offensively, so I'm excited to see what they draw up for him to be able to get into open space. The guy has really, really elite speed. So if you get him in open space and he makes a guy miss, and there's a lot of green grass in front of him, he's going to take advantage, and you're going to get to creating those chunk plays that even with Terry and Jaden in the football games earlier in the season for Washington, they've struggled with a little bit. There haven't been as many of those chunk plays, explosive plays as you would have liked. You also mentioned Ben Sinnott.
Yeah.
And Ben Sinnott is another guy that they've been really high on. Like higher than I thought they would be in the first couple weeks of the season, because it felt like in training camp he did not have a great training camp. It felt like in the preseason he was playing a little bit longer than you would have thought that Ben Sinnott would be playing in the preseason, and you're scratching your head saying, what's going on here with Ben Sinnott? But they really like what he seems to bring offensively, and this feels like a really good opportunity to utilize his athleticism, to utilize his ability to block. Because one of the things that I'm worried about, Lynnell, if you're going to go really deep into the roster and practice squad at wide receiver, they love running screen plays, the extension of the run game, right? For at least the first 4 weeks, nobody is blocking those the way that they need to. Guys are whiffing. They're missing on blocks. I'm curious to see if they still go back to the well with the screen plays, or if they say, we're going to try something a little bit different because these are getting blown up on a regular basis, and that's starting to put your quarterback in a bad spot.
Yeah, I think against Atlanta here in particular, I don't know if the wide receivers are going to be highly involved this afternoon. I feel like if you're Washington, what you have going for you right now, you're the best running team in the National Football League in pretty much every statistical category: yards per carry, yards before contact, total rushing yards per game. Go 12 and 13 personnel, condense the formation down, play with 2 and 3 tight ends. You saw Trent Scott, their sixth offensive lineman, being used last week. Get physical and try and punch this Atlanta Falcons football team in the mouth. They had some difficulty last week stopping Chuba Hubbard. Washington's got 3 different guys in McNichols, and Rodriguez and Krosky Merritt that you can throw at them. I think that's going to be the key for Washington here today, is trying to really establish the ground game. And then, like you said, play action pass gets opened up, and then your chance for explosives increases as well. And that's where Ben Sinnott may come into play.
So we're expecting that Bill is going to be good to go. All of the reports have said that Bill is going to be good to go. We will get the official who's in, who's out report in probably about 30 minutes. Are you worried about the utilization of him now that it feels like a regular member of the injury report through the first couple of weeks, including the preseason, but for the first couple of weeks of the season?
Worried, maybe strong word. It's something that I'm noticing, and this is something that I noticed dating back to training camp. After each preseason game, he was on the injury report. After the Burgundy and Gold inter-squad scrimmage, he was on the injury report. He didn't play football last year. Played in just one real game for Arizona, and we all know his story. It's well documented. So you wonder if his body's got to rebuild that callus for getting 15, 20 carries a game. We see that Washington's easing him in terms of his workload. But then we watch the games each and every week, just as the fans do. He is the most dynamic, most talented back that they have on this football team. Health is the biggest question with him. Can he handle a workload of getting 10, 15 carries per contest? Every time he touches the football, something special happens with it. He's making guys miss behind the line of scrimmage. He's getting skinny, running with good vision. He can do it all. I know pass blocking was something that they called a weakness of his, and last week you saw him pick up Jamal Adams on a blitz pickup. So he's really starting to come into his own here, and the health is the only thing stopping him.
We're going to give you our keys to a victory in about 15 minutes here on the show, but I do want to talk a little bit about the defense, Lynnell.
Yeah.
Against Green Bay, tight end was a problem. Last week against the Raiders, taking on the best tight end, not a problem. You get Kyle Pitts today. Kyle Pitts, if you play any form of fantasy football, has been a guy that most people are like, hey, this is the year. This is finally the year. It's going to be the year, what have you. I'd really prefer it to not be the day today that he has an iconic kind of performance. What do they need to do to stop him? Because as much as we talk about injuries on the offensive side, they have injuries on the defensive side as well.
Yeah, they do, and I think this defense is going to be the unit that has the most impact on this football game today. Atlanta is a group offensively that doesn't have any confidence. Me and you growing up through the terrible years of this franchise, we were always looked at as a get-right game for whatever reason. Don't let Atlanta get right this afternoon. I think the defense is the catalyst for that. And for Kyle Pitts in particular, I got the chance to catch up with Jeremy Reeves this week out at the park, and they're very aware of his usage and them trying to get him going. He's had at least 3 catches in the first 3 games of the season for Atlanta. Honestly, though, it all goes back to the run game, and we'll give our keys to the game here in a second. But I don't think Kyle Pitts gets going unless the Atlanta Falcons rushing attack is something that this Washington defense has to respect.
So there's something that Jeremy Reeves, I think he put this out on Twitter, that I feel like is very much worthy of a mention on the pregame show. So he is going to get the start in place today, I assume, of Will Harris. So he's going to get to play starting safety for the first time in his NFL career, at least certainly here. We love Jeremy Reeves. He's been here for a long, long time. And he had a great offseason. I thought in camp he looked really good. He was really understanding the defense. He was flying around. We know that he hits. He's a hitter. He tweeted something this week about, hey, I didn't come into the NFL as just a special teams guy. I'm just now getting my opportunity years into my career after being a Pro Bowler as a special teams guy. I'm really excited for him to be able to get an opportunity to play starting NFL safety today. I think he's earned it. He's done it the right way. He's done everything the right way. He's been really, really patient. I'm sure that there's been some times where he's been really frustrated but fought through that adversity. I'm really excited for Jeremy Reeves to see him get some real action at safety position on the field today.
Yeah, he is a pro's pro, and I was saying it even, with the signing of Will Harris, I thought he would have been in the mix for that starting safety job opposite Quan Martin. Denton, I don't think there's a member of this secondary that has a better grasp on what Joe Witt Jr. and company are trying to do conceptually on the defensive side of the football. You can see it in the speed that he plays with. The highlight big hits is what we see with him over the last couple of weeks. That's all because he has an understanding of his defense and he's playing a step ahead and reading and reacting and going and flying and getting to the football, man. He is a special individual, a God-fearing man, and I think he's going to have a big opportunity here this afternoon to really put his fingerprints on this game, not only trying to stop Kyle Pitts in the passing game, but Bijan Robinson as well.
Do you think they do a better job or as good of a job as they did last week in terms of getting after Michael Penix?
They better. That's going to be the key here. Penix, not the most mobile guy in the world. We know he is his best from a good pocket, good clean pocket, not someone that you want to have moving off of his spot too much. I look at the three guys really, Denton, that have wreaked havoc to start this year, and I don't want to feel like I'm not giving the whole entire front seven credit, but it's been three guys that have really dominated in 2 out of the 3 weeks here. Daron Payne, Javon Kinlaw, Dorrance Armstrong. Payne and Kinlaw on the interior, forcing quarterbacks to flush, and then Dorrance Armstrong being in the right place at the right time, lining up over the tackle, lining up over the guard, standing up, putting his hand in the dirt. He has been awesome to start this year, and I feel like those three are going to really control this football game up front and determine whether or not Washington walks away with a victory.
Armstrong's been really good.
Yeah.
Is what we've seen the first 4 weeks going to carry out for the entire season, or is it a hot start?
I think he's got the chance to carry out for the whole season, man. They're able to find favorable matchups for him because he doesn't mind lining up anywhere along the line of scrimmage. And when you're getting consistent interior push the way that Washington is right now with Daron Payne and Javon Kinlaw, if you're a tackle, you don't want to get too far upfield. So you're seeing Dorrance Armstrong win on some of these inside moves right now. And I think he's got the chance to continue to do this as the season progresses. Today, though, in particular, we love what he's done as a pass rusher. I need him to keep the outside arm free, set a hard edge, and not let Bijan Robinson attack you on the edges because while Washington's been really good stopping the run thus far, they haven't faced a back like Robinson that'll stress you on the edges.
Yeah, Ashton Genty, good running back in the NFL, has a good future. He ain't no Bijan Robinson. Not yet, at least. Not yet, at least. Bijan Robinson is a different kind of guy. We saw that last year. I'm hoping they do a better job defending him today. Want to remind all of you, we're live here at Honor Brewery in Fairfax, Virginia. They got a bunch of great game day deals, pitchers of beer for cheap, good deals on wings, cheeseburger sliders. These are calling my name, Lynnell. You need a place to watch the game? Come hang out with us. We're going to be here for the entirety watching the game. We're going live at halftime here on Twitter and on YouTube. So if you're listening on radio, be sure that you're locked in around your computer or phone for that. And you get your live post-game show at the end of the game where we're reacting on the spot to everything that we saw from Washington. Kevin Sheehan's going to be with us in 15 minutes, but when we get back, what does Washington need to do to solidify a win, jump to 3-1? Our keys to the game next on the Burgundy Gold pregame show. Kevin Sheehan's going to join us in about 10 minutes here on the Burgundy Gold pregame show. We are live from Honor Brewery in Sterling. You need a place to watch the game. Honor Brewery in Fairfax, not Sterling. We're in Fairfax. You need a place to watch the game. Come hang out with us. They got great specials on wings, cheeseburger sliders, and pitchers of alcohol, Lynnell. So that should get you out here. All right, it's time for our keys to a win here for Washington. What do they need to do to come away 3-1 and take down the Atlanta Falcons and maybe beat them up the way that the Carolina Panthers beat them up? I'm going to go first here because I'm very passionate about this first one. You have to stay committed to running the football. Yeah. With no Terry McLaurin, with no Noah Brown, with no John Bates, and with no Jane Daniels, you are at a disadvantage when it comes to playmakers. Your best playmaker right now is Deebo Samuel, and then it's your three running backs. Maybe Zach Ertz, but it's your three running backs after that. You have to stay committed to running the football and make it as easy for Marcus as possible by not making him carry the brunt of the load offensively. They did a fantastic job last week against Las Vegas. And if that's what they are for the remainder of the season, it's going to be as good of a season this year as it was last year, because that style of running was fantastic. Utilizing all of the different backs, watching Ja'Cory Cross-Kamara do what he does best, which is jump cuts, great vision, patient, not allowing the initial read of the hole to dictate where he's going. It was very, very enlightening to see that kind of running. And then Jeremy Nichols getting on angry runs. Like last week, offensively, the running game was fantastic. I want to see that again. Make it just a little bit easier for Marcus Mariota against a defense in Atlanta that I do feel like is compromised. No A.J. Terrell. That's very, very nice. That's going to make it a little bit easier to create some plays down the field, but you have to stay focused on running the football.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And all three of these running backs are going to be up here this afternoon. I expect all of them to get in on the workload. I expect to see McNichols on those obvious third down situations where you need him in to pass protect and using him as a guy that can make plays after the catch. But to your point, man, like you've got to have the patience to stick with it. That's going to be the key for Cliff Kingsbury. We've seen it in 2 out of the first 3 games, being able to stick with it no matter if it's worked or not on first and second down, continuing to do it throughout the course of the football game. But this afternoon in particular, man, like you mentioned, with no Terry McLaurin on the outside, you are going to have to find different ways to manufacture offense, and I think the run game, the quick passing game should help you do that. But most importantly, Denton, explosives necessary as well.
All right, key for you.
I know we give 3 keys, but there's only one key, honestly, that matters to me, and that is stopping Bijan Robinson on the early downs. Washington coming into this one, the best third down defense in the National Football League, and a big reason for that is because they've produced the 4th most 2nd and 7+ situations, and then the 3rd most 3rd and 11+ situations, giving Dorrance Armstrong and these pass rushers the opportunity to pin their ears back. They have to earn the right to rush the passer. That begins with stopping Bijan Robinson on 1st and 2nd down. Washington's been really, really good against the run to start this year. Can they continue it this weekend against Bijan, who is, with no disrespect to Scadaboo and Tyrone Tracy and Josh Jacobs and Genty, this is a different animal that you're going up against today. He is my favorite running back in the National Football League. I think he's a little bit better than Saquon Barkley. If you put him behind that Eagles offensive line, I think he'd produce the same type of numbers.
My next key kind of plays off of that. And I think it's just a general defensive key. Eliminate explosive plays. As good as they looked last week in the front 4 in particular against Geno Smith, there were still a lot of explosive plays. There are still some miscommunications at times defensively in the back end that are leading to guys being very, very open. I would like to eradicate those. They seem like they're targeting Mikey with the brunt of the offense. Green Bay did it. Las Vegas did it. And to an extent, New York did it. They were targeting number 0. He needs to play with confidence. He needs to find the confidence. At the end of the year last year, it felt like he was playing on a level that we have not seen confidence-wise from a defensive back here since at the very least D'Angelo Hall, but maybe even further back than that. It felt like he could do no wrong. I don't know what has changed this year. Maybe it's just getting more accustomed to playing in the NFL, but it feels like he is being targeted. Nobody's throwing at Trey Amos, which is on one hand fantastic because it means that they got that pick right, at least now, but that is leaving Mikey on a little bit of an island. I need them to eliminate the explosive plays. If you're going to allow Michael Penix a lot of time and just pick the defense apart, he is capable of doing that. So make sure that the communication is good on the back end to not allow a guy like a Drake London, like a Kyle Pitts, to go wild on the secondary.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I'll say this about Mikey Sanders still. Looking at him this year and evaluating him in year 2, I'm grading him on the rookie curve still because last year he was an outside corner for his entirety of his rookie campaign. This year he's going back to the slot. So it's almost like learning a new position, Denton. So I try to give him the benefit of the doubt. I think he has the play style that Washington is looking for. But to your point, he has been Washington's most targeted corner. He's given up the most catches. He's given up the most yards. He's given up the most touchdowns. So, yeah, Mikey Sanders still, it's tough being a slot cornerback in the National Football League. Where he is going to be big this afternoon is being that alley player on these Bijan Robinson runs, and when they try and get on the perimeter, talking about this Falcons rushing attack, can you be a guy that comes in and fills the gap? When they're throwing swing passes out into the flat to Bijan Robinson, can you come up, break down, and tackle? I think that's going to be huge today for Mikey as well.
My next key here, let's get some 12-team personnel. Let's get the tight ends involved. Zach Ertz is really, really good at his age. He is. I've called him like the Joe Johnson of the Commanders. His athleticism,
I like that.
a little bit of ISO Joe Johnson for my NBA fans. The athleticism maybe isn't what it once was, but he has a way of creating space. I want to see either Ben Sinnott or Paulson Yankoff get some real action today and then really take advantage of that action. Get plays in space, make big-time catches on a 2nd and long to make it a 3rd and short or just a new set of downs. Like, have those guys get used to playing some big-time football because it feels like we haven't seen a lot of them, those two in particular, in the NFL. Get them more comfortable and then have them start to make plays. There's a lot of plays that are going to be made today if Washington wins, Lynnell, by people that do not regularly make big plays, right? With no Terry, with no Noah Brown, those guys are playmakers. Somebody like a Luke McCaffrey, like a Jalen Lane, a Yankoff, a Sinnott, whoever, someone's going to have to step up. I'm excited to see these guys step up, but someone's going to, one of those 3, if not all of those 3 or 4, are going to have to step up.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, man. That's why I'm really, really curious to see, and I love that you started with this, Denton. Cliff, it is on you today, big fella. Like, how creative can you get? How deep can you get in terms of those bag of tricks and trying to scheme guys open? Because let's be real, right? Like Luke McCaffrey in one-on-one coverage against the starting NFL corner, I have the defender getting the stop more times than not. Jalen Lane in that situation, I have the defender getting the stop more times than not. What can you do to create leverage for this Washington Commanders receiver room and getting guys, open vertically, especially Jalen Lane? Like, that's the guy I continue to look at. He is the only guy that is active today of the 5 wide receivers they're going to have that I think you can genuinely, challenge a team vertically with, man. He's got legit 4.3 speed. We've seen it on punt returns so far this year. Can Cliff Kingsbury find a way to get him in space? Because if he can, I think it'll lessen the blow of not having McLaurin here.
I tweeted something out earlier about how this feels like a little bit of a bullpen game because offensively you don't have your star talent and you're going to rely on some guys that you don't normally rely on heavily. And that's going to put a lot of pressure on Cliff. And somebody tweeted back at me, they said, well, Terry was basically a non-factor last week, which is not entirely true, but I understand the concept of what they're saying. But it's very, very different.
I hate that conversation.
It's very, very different having him on the field. Maybe his numbers aren't crazy, but having him on the field is a threat versus not having him on the field.
Exactly.
And then you get to focus exclusively or more so on Deebo Samuel, and then you force the young guys, McCaffrey, Lane. Chris Moore's not a young guy, but he's not a massive playmaker in the NFL. Maybe it's Tay Martin, who's been a perennial practice squad guy. You're forcing guys that are not traditionally in roles to make plays to step up. It's going to be very, very different with no Terry McLaurin today.
Yeah, it is. And to your point, like, that's the biggest difference for me. For all the people that are saying, well, he hasn't produced, that much through the first 3 games of the season. It's not about the production. It's about what he means to this offense and how he dictates coverage for opposing defenses. You're not going to leave Terry McLaurin on an island too much without a safety over the top. So today I expect to see from Atlanta, Denton, a bunch of cover one, man-to-man coverage across the formation, daring these Washington wide receivers to win these one-on-one matchups. Deebo Samuel is a guy that I look at and I go, you know what? 9 times out of 10, you leave him in man-to-man one-on coverage, you'll be able to win. Zach Ertz, you talked about him as like ISO Joe Johnson. I love the comparison because that's exactly what he is. He is a guy that is going to win his matchup on 3rd and medium in the red zone when you need somebody to make a contested catch. He'll be the dude. Like you mentioned, though, the other guy's got to step up here.
Kevin Sheehan's going to join us here in a matter of moments. We want a bold prediction from you. You can tweet us at the Denton Day at NELL_BTP. If you are with us on YouTube, you can pop it in the chat. We will read some of those when we are finished with Kevin Sheehan. But Kevin Sheehan of the Kevin Sheehan Show is going to join us on the other side. He's Lynnell Willingham. I'm Denton Day. Don't go anywhere. It's the Burgundy Gold Pregame Show. We're live at Honor Brewery in Fairfax. He is Lynnell Willingham. I am Denton Day. It's your Burgundy and Gold pregame show. Kevin Sheehan in just a moment, but we have our Week 4 inactives for Washington. Not a ton of surprises. Jaden Daniels inactive. We knew that. Terry inactive. We knew that. Noah Brown inactive. We knew that one. John Bates, Percy Butler, Preston Smith. But for the second week in a row, Lynnell, Brandon Coleman is a healthy scratch. He is inactive. George Fant is going to be the swing tackle, and then Trent Scott is going to be the sixth offensive lineman active. Or he's going to be the sixth offensive lineman role. Another healthy scratch for Brandon Coleman. That's a tough one.
Yeah, I'm confused by that whole situation. I think it has more to do with them choosing Fant over him because he can play both tackle spots. So I think that's why he's getting the nod over him. But this is one of their own draft picks. That was a third-round pick, if I'm not mistaken. And last year, although it wasn't pretty as a tackle, we thought him moving inside the guard would definitely, better fit his skill set. But, through the first three games, he struggled. The first two games, rather, he struggled giving up pressure on bull rushes, not being able to drop his butt and anchor. And I think Chris Paul right now is just physically, more gifted than he is.
Also worth noting, Darnell Savage active. So you might see Savage, who was signed earlier this week, on the field for Washington. Let's get to our guy, Kevin Sheehan. He joins us every week on the Burgundy Gold pregame show. He is with us now. You can hear him every Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on the team at 980. Kevin, your immediate reaction to no Brandon Coleman for the second week in a row?
I mean, Chris Paul played well last week, and Coleman didn't play that well in Green Bay, and they're going with what Quinn has said. It's about competition. He's a young kid. He's in his second year. There's a lot of career left. We know he's talented. We know he's athletic, and he'll get more opportunities. But, right now they're going with, the guy that they trust more.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, how this offensive line plays here this afternoon. We've been talking about it during the pregame, Kevin. I think Cliff Kingsbury firmly under the microscope this afternoon. How do you dial up offense minus Terry McLaurin, minus John Bates, minus Noah Brown?
You got to run the football like they did last week. Jumbo, 6 offensive linemen against, a smaller front seven, but an athletic and quick front seven. If you can run the football and stay ahead of the chains like they did last week, that's obviously protective of your quarterback and the lack of dynamic, weapons today, for sure. I mean, they don't have, at least based on what we know, a true stretch of the field threat offensively. I mean, Lane can run. We know that, but, he's had some, issues at that position. But you got to be able to control the line of scrimmage and run the football and give Marcus Mariota 3rd and 2s and 2nd and 3s. And I think that they can do that today, no doubt. You got to stay out of 2nd and 3rd and longs against this team. This team's different than the Giants and different from the Raiders defensively. They'll get after you. They'll play man coverage behind with, especially today against this group of receivers. Stay ahead of the chains, run the football, Lynnell.
Kevin, is there any concern that despite not really getting a ton of carries, that Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt has kind of become a frequent on the injury report?
It kind of surprised me this week because we didn't see it in the Raider game, but I'm actually becoming comfortable, I don't know about you guys, with the running back situation. It's a by committee situation, and maybe somebody will emerge. It would be hysterical if it ended up being Jeremy McNichols, ended up being the lead back. They trust him for sure. They like him a lot, and he certainly made them look good last week. I'm fine with what they're doing right now. I think all three of them have, certain things they do well that can really benefit the offense, and they're not all the same. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm comfortable with that position right now as long as it stays healthy.
I agree with you, and it would be totally hysterical, by the way, Kevin, if McNichols ended up being the lead back, and I don't think it's too far-fetched. He's got every, skill that you need to be that lead dog. I know they love him in pass protection as well. Heard you talking about it this week. I said it as well on Burgundy and Gold today. It is about stopping Bijan Robinson this afternoon. I think this defense has another opportunity to really come out and dominate the football game the way they have in 2 out of the first 3 weeks. Joe Witt gave a really interesting nugget earlier this week, Kevin, just about how good they've been on first and second down. They've got the 4th most second and 7+ downs. They've got the 3rd most 3rd and 11+ opportunities. That's why they've got the best 3rd down defense in the NFL. But Bijan, Kevin, a different animal. Your confidence level that they can keep it up.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's number one on the list today, minus, self-inflicted turnovers, penalties, all of that stuff. But they're going to try to run the football today. They did not, attempt to try to stick with it last week. The score got sideways in the second half at Carolina, but they went into Minnesota and rushed for 224 yards against that Viking defense on the road, basically 2 weeks ago. He is elite. Like, this is the definition of an elite running back. Bijan Robinson can dominate games. And I do think for sure that's where they got to win today. They got to win up front. The O-line for the Falcons is excellent. That's the key. And by the way, it's not just Bijan Robinson. Tyler Algiers is good, right. A second back as there is, in the league. I think that's going to be what they try to do today is come out and run the football.
What does this kind of game mean for Marcus Mariota?
Look, he played great last week. Are you saying like personally because he was in Atlanta?
Personally because of the way that Atlanta ended and kind of publicly because of the quarterback show.
Well, I blame that on Netflix, but...
Yeah, it's an odd ending. I had somebody on from Atlanta last week, and they're not even entirely sure what went on. There was an Arthur Smith-Mariota disconnect. There was an injury that maybe wasn't an injury. It was not a comfortable ending for him in Atlanta. But no one really knows who was at fault necessarily. So, yeah, it's definitely an interesting day for him to face a second straight opponent that, he played for. He's just got to do what they did last week, and they've got to call the kind of game that puts him in position to succeed. He'll be a part of the running game again. They just have to stay ahead of the chains. I think second and third and long for any quarterback is a bad deal. Today against that team that blitzes a lot, it could be, with no receivers out there that we know of, could be a problem.
That's my last question for you, Kevin, before we get a prediction from you. Like, we know Deebo Samuel can win against man-to-man coverage. We know Zach Ertz can. Who's the other guy that you expect to step up here?
Chris Moore, maybe, Lynnell.
Yeah.
He's a veteran. They trust him. They brought up another veteran, not an older veteran, instead of the rookie in Tay Martin. I think that there isn't a whole lot that we know about the group that they're going to put out there except for Deebo Samuel.
Yeah.
So somebody's got to win today, though, or you just don't. You keep yourself out of those situations where you're forced to win and win quickly against pressure.
All right, Kevin, do they get to 3-1? Do they take down Atlanta?
I think the desperate team always in this league is the most dangerous, especially if they're somewhat capable, and the Falcons are somewhat capable. They've got talent. I would not be surprised if Penix plays a completely different game than he played last week. He's talented. He's self-aware. I don't like us today. I like Atlanta 24-17.
Real
I'm
quick.
stunned by that. Everybody seems to be on Atlanta.
Are you worried
totally
about Kyle
stunned.
Pitts finally having a Kyle Pitts game against this defense?
Well, actually, I think Penix has used him a little bit more than even Kirk did last year. There was a lot of issues with Pitts the last few years, but maybe he is maturing and starting to grow into his own.
Kevin, appreciate the time as always. We look forward to your breakdown tomorrow.
All right,
boys.
That is Kevin Sheehan. He's the host of the Kevin Sheehan Show from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on Monday, every Monday through Friday on the Team 980. I have a gut feeling, Lynnell, that there's going to be, we got Chris Russell coming up in about 15 minutes. You'll hear from the Junkies.
We know he's not going to pick him.
I mean, Grant Paulson's going to join us at 12:30. I do have a feeling that there might be more than just one Atlanta prediction on our show today.
Yeah, I think so, and it may come from the prestige host of this show. So, man, leave it to us.
All right, when we get back, we'll go into some bold predictions. We're asking for yours. You can tweet us at the Denton Day at NELL_BTP. If you're watching us hanging out on either YouTube or Twitter, you can pop one in the chat as well. No Brandon Coleman today for Washington. The rest of the inactives are pretty self-explanatory. Still no Preston Smith. I don't know when we're going to see him. It felt like it was kind of, not a big deal, but a deal when he got signed, and we haven't seen him, but we will see potentially Darnell Savage today. He was signed earlier this week. He is active. Kane Moderno active for the first time all season as well. Bold predictions come your way when we get back on the Burgundy Gold pregame show. is the Burgundy and Gold pregame show. We are live from Honor Brewery in Fairfax. You need a place to watch the game? Come hang out with us. They got great drink deals. They got great food deals. They got these cheeseburger sliders that I'm telling you, Lynnell, they are talking to me. So come hang out with us. We're going to be here for our halftime show, which is going to be live on Twitter and YouTube 2 minutes prior to halftime starting, and live for a post-game show on location as well. He's Lynnell Willingham. I am Denton Day. It's time, Lynnell, for some bold predictions. They are presented by Baldino's, your hometown security team for auto keys and fobs, baldinos.com. I put it out on Twitter, so we got some to read off of Twitter. We got a bunch of people getting active in our YouTube chat, but I'll start with you first. A bold prediction for Washington. It could be positive. It could be negative.
Yeah, Gregory Pett in the chat says his bold prediction is that the Skins lose by double digits. I don't know if I see that happening. I don't know what it is. Everyone locally, I've heard Grant pick the team to lose. I've heard Kevin Sheehan pick the team to lose. I don't know what it is about this spot. I guess Atlanta being the more desperate team is what I continue to hear. They got their doors blown off last weekend. My bold prediction is this. When you are down several key starters on the offensive side of the football, and when you're missing some key guys on defense, complementary football is the name of the game. My bold prediction is that the Commanders score a touchdown in all three phases today. Offense, defense, special teams. They haven't forced a turnover yet to start this young season. I think today the defense gets a turnover and they score some points off of it as well.
Now, are you thinking scoop and score? Are you thinking pick six? Are you an equal opportunity turnover? Like, what are your thoughts there?
I am, what did you call it, an equal opportunity turnover specialist. I'll take it however it comes, but I just think with Michael Penix, a guy that isn't the most mobile. And when you think about the way Deron Payne and Dorrance Armstrong and Javon Kinlaw are winning right now on the interior, I think it's a pick six. I think it's moving him off of his spot, making him be late with the football, and then one of these DBs. Pray to God we catch the football this week. Because that's been something I'm tired of seeing. Week in and week out, balls bouncing off the hand, bouncing off the face mask. I think they come up with one today.
They were running into each other when one person was trying to come away with an interception. I mean, they were breaking up interceptions in whichever way that they could. My bold prediction is that today is a Chris Rodriguez game. McNichols had a big-time run last week. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt has been excellent in very limited carries. But I think Chris Rodriguez is in for a big day today against the Atlanta Falcons. It just feels like that's the general rotation of the running backs, but I love the way that he runs, and I think there's a level of his physicality that could very much exploit this Atlanta front seven and then get into the second level. I don't know that there's a lot of safeties or DBs that want to tackle a guy like Chris Rodriguez. So right now, like if I pull up a sportsbook app, I see they do have a Chris Rodriguez prop, which is very nice. Sometimes they don't. I don't
just
see
forget all about him sometimes.
They don't have a Jeremy McNichols prop, but they have a Chris Rodriguez
on any
prop.
app, by the way.
28.5 yards for Chris Rodriguez.
He's making that on the first drive.
I think he is going to have a really strong performance. I'm thinking maybe above 60 and a tutty for C-Rod. So my bold prediction is that Chris Rodriguez has his best game of the season today for Washington.
I don't think it's a bad bold prediction at all. He's been the guy that started the football game the last few weeks, and the one thing that I really love about him, no wasted movement, right? North and south runner, gets downhill, runs with good pad level, really good in pass pro. He can catch it out of the backfield. You can make the argument that he's the most complete back that Washington has in terms of being able to do everything and not being limited in any facet of his game. You love yourself some C-Rod. I just hope, is today going to be the day where you just let Bill run wild? He is your most dynamic back. There is no one as good as him on this roster.
There's a level of talent, just natural running back talent that he has that most other backs that have been a part of this team do not have.
They just don't.
That's very, very clear in watching him run. All right, let's look at some of the ones in the chat here. You gave out Gregory's. He thinks Washington loses by double digits. Rakesh says that Luke is going to have a big game, 4 catches, 50-plus yards. His anytime touchdown has cut in like third.
Really?
It's 5-1 today.
Instead of 15-1.
For a Luke McCaffrey. I got it 16-1 last week. I'm kind of off the Luke McCaffrey thing now. Like, it happened. The bit is done. It's over. I lost a lot of money, or I put forth a lot of money. I didn't gain it all back, but I put forth a lot of money for the bit. I'm done on the Luke McCaffrey anytime bit.
I'm wondering today, like, who is the guy on the outside? I think Kevin brought up Chris Moore, and I know you've mentioned Chris Moore several times as well. Just from like a physical profile standpoint, Luke makes the most sense on the outside if you're talking about the combo of speed and the size. I just don't know how much they trust Luke McCaffrey, how much they trust him as a blocker, how much they trust him to read the right coverage, how much they trust him to separate on a consistent basis. So that's the other thing that's going to be interesting here. Who is the other receiver that ultimately emerges? I think it could be the tight ends, as we talked about earlier, finding a way to sneak Ertz or Sinnott or Yankoff up the seam here.
We got a couple on Twitter. Our guy Slide for 5 says Bill only touches the ball 6 times, but averages 9 yards a touch. Ooh. Let me tell you, if he touches the ball 6 times and averages 9 yards a touch, Cliff Kingsbury's not doing his job correctly. Because if he's averaging that kind of success running the football, you need to run him a lot more.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it feels like that is kind of how it's been. We've been left wanting more from Bill Merritt every time he plays. Green Bay only got 4 carries. All 4 of those carries went for 5 or more yards. I think finding that sweet spot for him in terms of carries is huge. And can they trust him to do the other things that comes along with being a running back?
Sean Sullivan tweets us and says he's in agreement with you. He says the defense finally forces a turnover. I am like sick and tired of being multiple weeks into the season and the defense not having forced a turnover. Yeah, the offense is doing a great job not turning the football over, but for the love of God, can somebody please force a turnover? Is that too much to ask for?
Yeah, I mean,
apparently it is.
It has to be.
We're 3 weeks into the season, it hasn't happened yet, so apparently it is.
You listen to the pressers just like I do. I thought this week in particular, when we heard from the coordinators, there was a confidence that Joe Witt was kind of exuding as he was talking. He's really thrilled with the way that they played. I gave you the numbers earlier about how good they've been on the early downs. That is a byproduct of their run defense being better. They're better playing the run. They're better in coverage than they were a year ago. I know we've given up some explosives, but down in, down out, they've been pretty darn good. The only thing that's been missing to this point is what you just mentioned, the turnovers. And when you're in a game like this afternoon, when you're down several key pieces on offense, what side of the football is going to give you that extra advantage for the defense, that extra bump up, that shot in the arm could be a turnover?
When we get back, our guy Chris Russell is going to join us. We will get his take on the game. You will hear from the Junkies in about 20 minutes. Grant Paulson at 12:30. He is Lynnell Willingham. I'm Denton Day. We are live from Honor Brewery in Fairfax. Need a place to come watch the game? Come hang out with us. They got great game day specials on food and drink. We're right back. It's Burgundy Gold Pregame. We're an hour away from kickoff with Washington and Atlanta. Commanders on the road trying to get to 3-1. No Jaden Daniels, no Terry McLaurin for the second week in a row. No Brandon Coleman. He's a healthy scratch. You need a place to watch the game? Come hang out with us. We're at Honor Brewery in Fairfax. They got great specials on food and drinks. Come hang out with us. We're here for the entirety of it. We got a live halftime show that'll be live on Twitter and YouTube, and a live postgame show on Twitter and YouTube as well. So make sure you're following us at 106.7 The Fan and at the Team 980. He is Lynnell Willingham. I am Denton Day. I'm stunned, Lynnell. We've talked about it, but I'm stunned you don't get Brandon Coleman for the second week in a row. They really seem to love Chris Paul. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I'm going to say it. And you're going to hear it. The whole world's going to hear it. Ron might have got one right. Ron Rivera might have got one right with Chris Paul.
Yeah, he might have. And I'll never forget what New Viking John Allen said, former commander New Viking, said about Chris Paul. His hands are like vice grips, and that's when he was a seventh-round rookie when John Allen was describing him that way. I mentioned it, the first little video that I did of this whole offseason in terms of Commanders content was the first day of voluntary OTAs. There wasn't much to note then. You know, it's underwear Olympics. They don't even do team drills. It's just throwing and catching pretty much. But Chris Paul came in looking like a different dude, looked like he had dropped 10, 15 pounds. He just looked more lean, and his body composition had totally changed, and you're seeing him get rewarded for that now.
Chris Russell is going to jump on with us here. You can hear him every Monday through Friday, 1 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time on the Chris Russell Show on the Team 980. He joins us now. Roost, I called this game at the beginning of our show a bit of a bullpen game. Offensively, a lot of your playmakers aren't available. You're going to have to rely on guys that are usually in much smaller roles. Who are you looking at and keying in on and saying, all right, this guy needs to step up for Washington today?
Yeah, well, first of all, good afternoon, boys. Thanks for having me. Sorry I couldn't make it down there. A little bit under the weather, but don't want to get anybody all sick or anything. But yeah, I mean, you know, you probably tend to look at, like, I would think a big running back game, right? I mean, you know, if Bill is truly healthy, which, I mean, he obviously missed practice Wednesday and Thursday. I don't know if you could say he's truly healthy, but they were convinced after Friday that he was fine. So, I mean, obviously you start there, right? And then you wonder kind of how they use McNichols and Rodriguez off of that. And we saw, obviously, last week it was Rodriguez to start. So we will see about that. But the one guy I just had like a little bit of a weird epiphany this morning, and I'm sure you guys are going to laugh. I know, Dita, you're a big Luke McCaffrey anytime TD. I went with Coulson Yankoff for his first ever NFL TD because they're going to play 12 and 13 personnel, and I could just see them lining up at the 2 or at the 1 and sneaking Coulson Yankoff out into the little flat area and nobody thinking about him. So that's what I came up with while I was watching this horrible Pittsburgh-Minnesota game.
Horrible indeed, my friend. I'm going to go to the defensive side of the football. This is another game where they have the opportunity to dominate, it feels like. When you think about what Atlanta looked like last week offensively against the Carolina Panthers, their running game in terms of the Atlanta Falcons is pretty damn good. Just 2 weeks ago, they ran for 200 yards against the Vikings. Washington, conversely, Chris, has been really good to start the season in all 3 games in terms of their run defense. Do they continue that this afternoon? Because Bijan Robinson, as we know, just simply a different animal than what they've seen to this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be almost impossible to shut him down, whatever that definition is. What you want to do is contain him so that he doesn't, of course, turn a 6-yard gain into a 60-yard gain or something like that, or even, hell, a 26-yard gain, never mind a 60-yard gain. You just want to make sure you're tackling well, your angles are right, you're gang tackling, you're surrounding, you're funneling him back, as opposed to letting him break free to the perimeters. They run well off the left side of their offensive line. They've got a veteran, but not their starting right tackle. So clearly, I would expect Joe Witt to kind of try and pay a little extra attention to maybe aligning Frankie Louvu, of course, on the right side and others to try and take away some of that time and space that Bijan Robinson gets against certain opponents and certainly could get today if you're undisciplined. So to me, it's about control. It's not about shutdown. It's not about just getting gassed like they did Saquon Barkley on the first play of the NFC. If you see that, it's going to be a long day. If you're just getting 4 or 5 yards a carry, that's okay. Don't beat yourself up over it. You're not going to shut down every running back. Ashton Jeanty doesn't have the moves to the perimeter that Bijan Robinson has, and certainly nobody else has so far on the schedule. So it's okay. Give up 100. Give up 110. Don't give up 150 is where I'm looking at.
Who is going to need to play big to make sure that doesn't happen? Are you looking more at Daron Payne, Javon Kinlaw? Is there somebody else you got your eye on?
Yeah, I was encouraged by what I saw at Louisville last week because I thought he had a really slow first 2 games, and then I saw him, sticking his nose in off that right edge of the defense a couple of times on some run stops. Payne, obviously, and Kinlaw and everybody else did, and we know what Dorrance has done. But I'm kind of wondering if it's a Frankie Louvu type of, I don't want to say breakout game because he's not a great tackler, but if it's a Frankie Louvu impact type game. And if we come away tomorrow, tonight, whatever, going, oh, hey, the reason why Bijan didn't get 150 and only got 95 was because Frankie Louvu had 8 tackles or something like that, and he was noticeable in the flat and in open space where, again, sometimes he struggles to tackle. So I think that's a huge, huge key there. And then maybe I'll just go with Lynnell's guy. Javonte Jean-Baptiste, whatever role he's exactly going to play, snaps, whatever, we know he's capable of at least helping set the edge. And again, I think they're going to try, Atlanta, to run off of their left side. That's where they have success. That's where they have their starters. That's where they probably are going to want to establish. So I would think it would come from somebody on that area primarily.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they contain Bijan Robinson. We know how special he is, but the struggles of this Atlanta offense, well documented. When you look at Washington's secondary, Chris, they've given up explosives in all 3 of the games that they've played into this point. Mm-hmm. High discipline has been the main thing and the root cause of it. Atlanta struggled so bad last week, Chris, that I almost look at this and go, is this a get-right game for the Falcons? What type of pressure is on this Commanders secondary in particular to contain a Drake London and a Kyle Pitts and company?
Well, I think there's a lot because, A, we know it's banged up, number one. Number two, and I hate to say this, Quan Martin, I had him on the show on Thursday, and he played really, really well at the end of last year, including an interception against Penix in Atlanta in that Sunday night game, and we know what he did in Detroit and so on, but he's really struggled, and without Will Harris, maybe those problems have been blown up, if you will, a little bit. Pitts has got a couple of touchdowns in each of his last couple of games against Washington. We know they struggled against tight end Tucker Kraft in Green Bay, not necessarily against Brock Bowers in Vegas, but I think that was more offensive line quarterback related and maybe Bowers not being 100%, so don't think they've got that problem solved. So, yeah, there's a lot of issues and a lot of concerns for me. It's why I kind of expect a non-aggressive game plan. I would expect them to play more zone in this game. I would expect them to not blitz as much unless they really need to crank up the heat on Penix. I don't think they want to let Penix get comfortable, and certainly you don't want to let him get into a rhythm, but I would say crank up the heat when you have to as opposed to by design, if that makes sense. To me, it looked like those interceptions that he threw to the perimeter last week, it looked like they came in zone, if I saw that correctly, and just him not being able to get the ball all the way out there and guys reading his eyes and him staring down. So, I hope that the Commanders can, again, anticipate a little bit, play with that better eye discipline that you just mentioned, Lynnell, that, obviously has been a problem not only last week, not only in Green Bay, but last week as well on a couple of big plays. So this is what you hope for out of this secondary group. And, of course, again, the pass rush has to be there, right? If the natural pass rush is there, that allows you to play more coverage. That allows you to play a little softer in coverage if the pass rush is getting home, especially off the left side of the Washington defense, again, taking advantage of that matchup advantage because they're down there starting right tackle.
Roost, by the way, so you gave the Coulson Yankoff anytime touchdown 40-1. So you twist my arm. I bet Luke Coulson Yankoff anytime touchdown. And
attaboy. Somehow I got it at only plus 1,500 this morning. I don't know what I did wrong. I did anytime touchdown on FanDuel, and I'm only going to get $15 on a $1 bet.
I switch your sportsbook up because I used a different one and it gave me 40 to 1. If it does hit, lunch is on me the next time that you and I see each other.
Well, there you go. I'll take that, D-Day.
I wanted to ask you, we talked a little bit about Mikey Sanderson. It feels like he's not playing with a ton of confidence. What do you see when you watch him in the first 3 weeks of the season?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we know going back to slot, right, which people feel is his natural position. But then I think the touchdown that they gave up to the third touchdown, the bomb, was when he was playing outside because of the injuries, right, with Lattimore and Trey Amos. So, it's been a little bit of both, right? And maybe it's been a little bit too aggressive. Like, I think when Mikey is at his best, he's playing an off coverage and he can diagnose a shorter pass and come up and bulldog tackle somebody, right? I don't look at Mikey as being this great corner guy that's just going to run hip to hip, step for step with somebody, whether it be out of the slot or outside. So I think he's just got to play better with the ball in front of him, if that makes sense. And again, where I think of Mikey is being physical and chippy. So maybe if, again, they're playing more off-man or more zone coverage, that allows him to be more aggressive in terms of coming up, diagnosing, and tackling.
It's going to be huge, man. I got the chance to catch up with Jeremy Reeves in the locker room earlier this week, and that was the number one thing he talked about, just tackling, playing with good eye discipline, but most importantly, just having 11 hats flying to the football. Chris, special teams was so big for this group last week. You're someone that pays attention to it a little bit more than the average Bear. From what you've seen covering the NFL over your time, is it possible, I guess, to have back-to-back really good weeks of returning the football in the punt game and in the kickoff game after the other team has watched it on tape a billion times going, hey, this is something this team does really well?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible because we've seen it already this year. Debo has had all 3 games. I would say he's contributed very well in the kick return game with a couple of big pops. And even Jalen Lane in Green Bay, right? Didn't he have like a 23, 24-yard return, if I'm not mistaken, guys? And then obviously popped the 90-yarder. So, I mean, of course, good blocking, all of that stuff, right? And it helps, I would assume, that it's indoors, so you don't have to worry about any kind of wind or any kind of inclement weather or anything like that, number one. But here's the other thing, and Lynnell, I think you pointed this out, maybe it was Sheehan, I can't remember, and it's a good point. Atlanta has struggled in their punt game. And Washington can take advantage of that this year. No offense to Jamison Crowder. I mean, we all like Jamison Crowder. But he didn't have that pop and explosion that Jalen Lane has. And I'll go one step further, not that this is the same team or anything, but I think the last time the Washington Commanders were in Atlanta, back in, 2022, they popped a 102-yard kickoff return to start the second half. So there is a little bit of history in this building, right? And maybe we could see Debo or Jalen Lane pop one and give them a free 7 or set one up. And then, listen, we all know, right, Matt Gay has got to be Matt Gay of the 46 and 56-yard variety and not the opening kickoff out of bounds and never mind a 37-yard chip shot. I mean, it goes without saying, right? There are no excuses. They chose not to work out any kickers this week. I would have done so to have somebody on retainer on the practice squad. They don't believe in the 2-kicker thing. I don't agree with it, but look, I get it. They're putting a lot of faith in Matt Gay. Weather, again, not a problem with the roof closed. Should have a good surface, should have no excuse. If he misses a 55-plus yarder, nobody's going to get mad at you. Please make the ones that you have to make. Please.
All right, Roos, do they do that? You lined up a lot of good things that could happen. Do those things happen? Does Washington jump to 3-1?
No. My succinct answer, I felt bad about this game all week, just from the standpoint of I do believe in the playing with your hair on fire after you get kicked in the mouth like Atlanta did last week. And I mean, Raheem's fighting for his job, and their defense is much better than when we last saw it in person late last December, and I really believe in all three levels of their defense being better than it was, even though they don't have AJ Terrell, which is a big thing. But of course, it's neutralized by not having Terry McLaurin and Noah Brown to take advantage of it. So unless there's a big break there, I see the Commanders losing a tough game, 23-20, 20-17, something like that. I think it'll be back and forth all day, and I think it'll come down to one little mistake, whether that's a turnover, a missed kick, a blown assignment, miscommunication, which we know has been an issue, something like that. And I think Atlanta covers I saw it this morning at 2, guys. I don't know if it's gone up to 2.5 or whatever, but I say Atlanta by a field goal.
Yeah, wow. So they win and they don't cover because it is now 2.5, Roost. Chris, we appreciate the time as always, my friend. Enjoy the game.
We don't appreciate your bad prediction.
Well, listen. You guys know I don't believe in having my surgically attached pom poms, waving in the appropriate direction. So I'll take the heat. I'll be glad to be wrong. Let's put it that way. Let's go to 3-1, and the Rooster can be wrong all he wants.
That is Chris Russell. He is the host of the Chris Russell Show every Monday through Friday, 1 to 4 p.m. on the Team 980. Good enough to join us there. When we get back, a new report, Lynnell, regarding Jaden Daniels that has a little people hot under the collar online. I'll share that with you. You'll hear from the Junkies. Grant Paulson joins us at 12:30. He's Lynnell Willingham. I'm Denton Day. Don't go anywhere. It's the Burgundy Gold pregame show. It's the Burgundy Gold pregame show. We are live from Honor Brewery in Fairfax. If you need a place to watch the game, come hang out with us. Great food specials, great drink specials. He is Lynnell Willingham. I am Denton Day. We're about 40 minutes away from kickoff in Atlanta with the Commanders and the Falcons, Lynnell. And we learned about 20-some-odd minutes ago, Jane Daniels, Terry McLaurin not playing. They're also not at the game. They didn't travel any of the injured players. I'm looking at some things on social media. I shouldn't, but I am. People a little upset about that. Are you upset about that?
No. That he didn't travel? No. I think people that are upset don't understand the intricacies of NFL rehab. Him not traveling is all so he can get an extra day of rehab in. The team flew to Atlanta Saturday. He was in the DMV on Saturday at the facility, I assume, getting rehab. He's been working around the clock to try and play. This is what happens when you're a freakazoid competitor like he is. When they say around the clock, I literally think he's probably rehabbing 3 or 4 times a day, having 3 or 4 hour-and-a-half sessions throughout the day. As someone that tore their ACL back in the day and was a regular human being with my aunt and uncle's work insurance, I didn't get to rehab 3-4 times a day. You get your 1.5 hour session, you get that like 5 days a week, and then that's it. So Jaden doing whatever he can to try and expedite this process. Denton, you know the report is out there. I think Rap Sheet has said it, and then
next
Schefter
week is going to be a go.
They're
going to play him next week. That's
I don't like
Rap
that.
report.
Why are we stop that? We got to stop. He should be able to go next week if he can practice, not be limited, and really just not be limited. That's really my thing. Like, I've continued to say it all along. I don't want him back out there until he is the guy he was pre-injury. I don't want him out there at 90%. I want him out there at 85%. I need him at 100% so you can run this kid.
Man, if they put him out there on Wednesday, though, and he's a full participant, juice is going to be flowing.
Yeah.
I'm going to be making excited Commanders noises. That's my new bit. I think that's
Commander
funny.
From the
I think that's very funny when they do that. So Jaden is not there. He did say, though, when he talked today or talked this week, he said that he was not that, but to what your point was that he's still getting there at 5:30. So like his days are starting. It's not like he's sleeping in. So he's still getting there early, which I think echoes kind of what you said about constantly rehabbing and not missing opportunities to do so. All right, we'll put that on the back burner. We want you to hear from the Junkies. Grant Paulson going to join us in about 10 minutes. But here's the Junkies' thoughts on the game and if they see Washington coming out with a dub.
All right, boys, week 4, Commanders head to Atlanta to take on a Falcons team in a Marcus Mariota revenge game. Of course, this is the second start for Mariota. The first one was pretty damn good. Impressive. The only thing he really did wrong was fumble, but passed very efficiently, ran the ball well, led the team to a win. What do you expect against the Falcons?
Clearly, he's very comfortable in this system. Kingsbury's comfortable with him as well. The injuries are an issue. I mean, Terry is an issue. It's one less weapon he's got. But I just think he can handle this. As long as he just doesn't make any major mistakes, I think he can handle this system and this pressure. Pressure's not going to get to him. The only thing that I kind of worry about is the fact that the Falcons were so bad last week, throwing up a donut against Carolina and Charlotte. They're going to be much better. They're going to get Drake London involved early. Bijan is a weapon. He can be trouble all day long.
Mariota was a stud last week. He did not leave Atlanta at the end of the 2022 season under the best of circumstances. I think he wants to go in and show them that he can still play quarterback at a high level. Look, just do something relatively close to what you did when you helped lead your team to 41 points. And I know 7 of that was on a kick return, but he was awesome. He's one of the better backups in the league, and I think his teammates have full confidence in him to do what he did at Northwest Stadium in Atlanta this weekend.
I'll just assume that Mariota is a great fit for this system, and he'll go out there and play great. Maybe not quite as great as last week. Hopefully he doesn't fumble, though. But who's going to step up for Terry? Who's going to run those routes that if it's going to be a big Debo day, they have to respect someone else. Otherwise, they could just totally focus on Debo, right? So somebody has to step up. Last week at the end of the game, it was Luke. Jalen Lane had a big day. Who's going to step up? One of those two guys needs to step up opposite Debo so that Debo could do his thing.
It could be enhanced roles for Zach Ertz. He sees a few more targets. Or Chris Moore, maybe he gets 3 or 4 balls thrown his way. Somebody's going to have to fill that void with Terry not being there.
Because of all the other storylines surrounding Jaden Daniels' injury, Terry McLaurin and his injury, we haven't talked very much about what seems to be an improved Commanders defense. Last year, you play the Falcons, it goes to overtime, you win in overtime. Bijan ran for 90 yards. This is a big test for what Adam Peters tried to construct in the offseason and what looks to be improved by adding Kinlaw with Payne and that defensive line, adding kind of bigger guys. They've been pretty good against the run. If you stop Bijan, I'm sorry, that team is dead. Penix didn't look good last week. I'm going to take the Commanders in a close one, 24-20. It's on the road, but I think they get the dub and improve to 3-1.
Matt Gay drills a corner 3 at the buzzer, 24-21.
Falcons will be better than they were against the Panthers. You can't get any worse. I mean, they scored 0 points against the hapless Carolina Panthers. I like the Commanders here, 28-21.
I just need Payne to play back-to-back weeks. Play like you did last week. If he does, if Kinlaw does, Mariota will be good enough. I still think it's going to be tight, though. I'll agree with JP, 24-20 Skins.
All right, that's how we see it. Hopefully the Commanders deliver a win, get to 3-1, then we'll have fun on a Victory Monday on the Junkies right here on 106.7 The Fan at 6 a.m. Back to you, boys.
A lot of confidence in Matt Gay from the Junkies, Lynnell. They're more confident than I am in the kicker. He hasn't given me a reason to be confident this year.
Irrational confidence from our morning drive show, but the boys are confident, so I'm confident. I'm just glad that somebody that represents us has an ounce of positivity in their body. Kevin Sheehan not picking him. Chris Russell not picking him. Grant Paulson joins us next, and I'm sure he's not picking him. Leave it up to the host, man.
Well, we will see what Grant Paulson says because, as you mentioned, he's going to join us next. It's your Burgundy Gold pregame show. We are live from Honor Brewery in Fairfax. Come hang out with us. Watch the game. We'll do our halftime show from here. We'll do our postgame show from here. It'll be live on Twitter and YouTube. Grant Paulson next on 106.7 The Fan and the Team 980. It's the Burgundy Gold pregame show. We are live from Honor Brewery in Fairfax, Virginia. Come hang out with us. They got great game day specials on food and drink, and we're going to be here for the entire game. We got our halftime show that'll be live on Twitter and YouTube. We got our postgame show that'll be live on Twitter and YouTube as well. We'll be doing it right here, so it'll be a fun environment, especially, Lynnell, if the Commanders come away with a big-time win. Are you feeling good as we're now about 30 minutes away from kickoff?
Hearing our colleagues, Kevin picked them to lose, Chris Russell picked them to lose. I think based off of listening to G&D on Friday, Grant's not feeling the most confident either. For whatever reason, I have just been irrationally optimistic all week long, despite the injuries. I just think, this is going to sound real Doc Walker of me, I just think Washington's the tougher, more physical football team, and I think if they're able to control both sides of the line of scrimmage, they'll have an opportunity to win no matter who's at quarterback, no matter who's at wide receiver. So we'll see, though, if the big boys up front take the challenge personally.
Do you believe they can control the line of scrimmage, or what we saw last week was a product of the Vegas Raiders line not being good?
I will say this. Green Bay is Atlanta, is the second best offensive line that you faced this season. So it is a step up in competition. But
admittedly, the bar is very low because
yes.
two offensive lines have been arguably the worst two offensive lines with the Giants and the Raiders.
So, yeah, to your point, like, it's kind of hard, and that's the one thing that I've kind of been trying to figure out this week, and I don't even know if this question gets answered, but I think we're all wondering locally, like, who are the real Washington Commanders? Are they the team that is dominated in 2 out of the first 3 weeks, or are they closer to that team we saw on Thursday night against Green Bay?
Will the Rio Commanders please stand up? Let's ask that to Grant Paulson. He joins us now here on the Burgundy and Gold pregame show. Grant, what's going on, man? How are we feeling ahead of about 30 minutes away from kickoff here?
Where you at,
I just walked out of Food Line. I got a guy in a Sean Taylor jersey next to me who just said hello. So they're ready for the game out here in Lorton, Springfield. What's up?
What's going on, Jeeps? How are you, brother?
I'm doing very well. Yeah, we had to take the kids over. You know, we were light on Coke Zeros.
Okay.
Can't get through a NFL Sunday without a couple of those. So we're good to go. But I heard you guys talking, about who the real Commanders are. And
yeah.
I think today's going to be indicative of that. You're undermanned. Obviously, it's a tough matchup in terms of personnel with a lot of guys missing, but still a winnable game. On the road, 1 o'clock. Atlanta's going to give it their best shot. They're desperate.
Real quick, you said you're coming out of Food Line. What is the game day spread at the Paulson Palace?
Oh, this was a load up. So for me, I got to do Coke Zero, right? Yeah. I've got to have. Used to be Coca-Cola Classic, but Copair's not a big fan of that. We go Coke Zero. There might be a few chips snuck along the way with some hell of a good dip. You got to go Cape Cod, extra crunchy. You know how we do. And then for the kids, they're just getting them out of the house for a few minutes. I'm going to be, as of about 12:57, the worst father in America for the next 12 years. 12 years probably is true, but 12 hours or so. So basically just trying to, get the mom an hour or so respite. So we're just driving them around. We're getting them a couple of snacks, and we'll head back and see what's what.
Do the kids have any hot takes on the game? Are they a fan of Marcus Mariota? Do they want Jaden
Well,
to be
my son's wearing a Jaden Daniels jersey. I don't know if he knows the bad news yet. He doesn't have a Marcus Mariota in the closet, I can tell you that. My daughter likes the Minnesota Vikings. She doesn't know that Kirk Cousins is now in Atlanta. So I don't know if they're the ones you want to necessarily chop it up with on this Sunday.
James, Marcus Mariota was just sensational last week. He's been sensational every time he's had to come in and play for this Washington team. Second consecutive start, minus Terry McLaurin, minus Noah, and minus John Bates. Do you think he has what it takes to keep it going for the second consecutive week?
I do. I trust this offense with Mariota at the controls. I think he's a really good fit for what they do. I think Cliff Kingsbury, I don't want to say simplifies things because I don't think that's the case from a running standpoint. I actually think there's some complexities to what he's going to do. Mm-hmm. They go with the big 12 personnel. They bring in a third tight end, which oftentimes is tackle Trent Scott. And, they run the ball out of a multitude of different looks. They do some really cool stuff. I think the plan's going to be very similar to last week in the sense of they're going to run the football and protect Marcus Mariota by staying ahead of the chains. And his feet are a big part of the running game. He's as good at reading the end and read option as there is in the league. There's very few areas where I would tell you Jaden Daniels can learn anything watching Marcus Mariota. But one of them might be, this is an elite, all-time read option type reader of edges. So I think that's an area where they can have success again today. He ran for 40 yards in the first half in the competitive portion of the game last week. I think you'll see some of that again. But also I like his decisiveness, how quickly the ball comes out. Over 17 games in 18 weeks, he'd get exposed for some of the physical limitations, some of the things you need when it's not 72 and sunny. Such a dependent position. Last week, the Vikings scored 2 touchdowns defensively, and everything's going great, and Carson Wentz is the answer, right? This week, you're playing from behind, and all of a sudden, he's taking sacks and turning the football over. But it's a lot of this with Marcus Mariota is about everything around him, running game, defense, playmakers, and some of that's dropping like flies. But I just think he's going to be able to operate the offense. I think having Krosky Merritt available, being 3 deep at running back will help.
Are you expecting a lot of carries from Bill, or do you think they'll kind of do what they did last week, which is you get 6, you get 8, you get 5?
I think it's more that, only because JCM's still in a position where when you miss multiple days of practice with a knee, I'm a little dubious about your health completely going in. Like, it'd be odd for me, after he misses, let's say, 2.5 of 3 practices or whatever, for him to go out there and get his first 16, 17 carry game. I think if he practiced all week, I might tell you that, and that's 100% what I'm anticipating. But I think we're a week or 2 away from that maybe. And let's face it, Chris Rodriguez was first guy to the shoot last week when they tried to establish some physicality. He had a couple of really nice runs right off the bat. They went on a 4-play drive and scored a touchdown that ended with the Mariota scramble after 3 Rodriguez carries. And Jeremy McNichols was the one that hit the home run with the 60-yarder, and I thought he salted the game away effectively a couple times now in 4-minute offense, being able to thump too. So when everyone's doing their job well and everyone's doing it at a high level, I think you can feel good about not having to necessarily tweak things or turn up the fader on Merritt just yet.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Cliff schemes up the rushing offense this week. Marcus Mariota, to your point, a huge part of it. On the defensive side for Washington, they've been dominant in 2 out of the first 3 weeks. Obviously had the hiccup on Thursday night against the Packers. They've been really good on the run too, Jeeps. It doesn't matter who you've played. Josh Jacobs has been a guy that, is clearly a star-studded back in this league. They shut him down. They shut down Ashley Genty. They shut down Scadaboo and Tracy. Bijan Robinson, though, is a different animal and is going to stress you on the edges. How do you think they deal with him this afternoon?
So it's a good question. First of all, not well. I mean, this is my only real concern and my biggest fear. They struggle on stuff to the outside, and nobody's better at running it than the Falcons, right? Going back to last year, go look at the first half of that game. Now, it's different personnel largely, but I think Bobby Wagner's as good as there is at inside linebacker, coming downhill, making tackles. When he's in that phone booth and you're able to turn everything between the tackles kind of into him in that short space. It's like the drill from playing ball, guys, where you're inside the cones and backs and blockers are coming right at you. Like, Bobby Wagner's the best on the planet at that, maybe still. But when you get him moving horizontally, laterally, sideline to sideline, that's when you start to expose this defense a little bit. And that's what the Falcons do well. They're going to stretch you out with not only outside zone, but they're going to run powers. They're going to pin and pull. You're going to get moving here. I don't love that matchup. And I'm more okay, believe it or not, with that where they're going to get 5, 6, 7, 8 here and there than the pass game. Who defends Bijan Robinson out of the backfield? This is the most dynamic, prolific pass catcher in the league right now. This is Christian McCaffrey from a couple years ago. The only thing that has really slowed or stopped him at all has been play calling and usage, inexplicably by Zach Robinson. I'd target him 7, 8, 9 times a game. I mean, he is so dynamic. And I just don't know. Boston's going to have to commit a defensive back, guys. I don't think a linebacker on this roster, with Butler out and a couple injuries now, Will Harris at safety, I don't know that a safety can do it either. This has to be maybe even like, a lot of Quan Martin or possibly even Mikey Sanders still foregoes some responsibility against receivers when he's coming out of the backfield and covers the flat with Bijan. I'm very concerned about what you do to keep him from popping off a big 40, 50-yard reception.
Yeah, I was going to ask about Mikey Grant. Just generally speaking, it feels like he's playing with a confidence level that's a lot lower than it was at the end of the year. What have you noticed when you've watched him the first 3 weeks of the season?
Well, Denton, he's the most targeted and least effective statistically. Now, some of this is a little wonky because, as you know, like they assign every throw, every catch, every yard to a DB in some of these metrics, and that's not how a lot of times zone coverage and things work. But he's given up more catches, more yards than anybody in the nickel in the league, and it kind of checks out with just, as you said, last year at the end of the year, he was playing with an amount of confidence, which makes sense months in at a position, even though it was not a traditional position for him on the boundary, where I just felt like he was their best player on defense in games. Like, you really felt that. And you have not early this season. I think Louvu got off to a slow start. Last week, you started to see him turn a corner. I felt like Samerstill's kind of in the same boat, and maybe this is the week for him. I like the matchup a little more because it's a lot of stuff around the line of scrimmage. Atlanta does not push the ball down the field vertically. I don't know why, because Michael Penix has a friggin' rocket for an arm. But everything in their offense is kind of tenon in. It's a lot of flat-footed receivers looking back at the line of scrimmage. So it's a decent little matchup in the secondary. But, yeah, Sanders still's got to be, and I think he would say this, got to play a little bit better. He's already a leader. He's already a guy that's, like, running the show in the locker room in so many ways, and you can just see out on the practice field, like, he's a communicator. I just don't know that he's gotten off to as fast a start as he would like, and hopefully that changes today.
For sure. Grant, this Atlanta offensive line, they're down Caleb McGarry, obviously, since the start of the season. But on paper, if you're stacking all the groups up that Washington's faced, you would call this the second-best group. Washington's defensive front has dominated to start the year. Joe Witt gave a cool nugget earlier when he spoke to the media, GP, that they're third in terms of forcing second and 7+ opportunities, and they're fourth in terms of those third and 11+ opportunities. Do you think this defensive line can tee off for the third time in 4 weeks?
There's really no reason they shouldn't, specifically off the left edge. That's what to watch for, I think, Lynnell. Yeah. At right tackle, you just said it, basically. The Falcons have had some injuries, but they're on their third tackle. That's where Minnesota got home. That's where they've had a lot of problems. Carolina had some success. So I just don't think they're playing, elite up, top 10, top half the league type pass protection at this point. Now, Penix hasn't helped them a lot. He played terribly last week. If he plays a game similar to what he did last week, then you're going to win going away. It was just a disqualifying, gives you no chance kind of quarterback performance. Some of that is going to be on the offensive line. But honestly, I think Zach Robinson, their coordinator, should be on the hot seat. Like, the way he calls the game, the lack of sticking with Bijan Robinson and some of the stuff that he asks of the line is kind of unnecessary. I also hate how much they use pistol. They don't really use play action to take any shots. They don't move the pocket to help either. Like, you know where Penix is going to be on some of their deeper stuff, and it's very, very rare, but they don't, go play action, boot, roll him out, help the line out. So I think they actually stress those guys more than they need to, too. I don't know that it's just that they're not very good up front. I just think the plan hasn't been very good. But I do believe Washington can take advantage. Lawrence Armstrong's the NFL leader in pressure percentage, trying to keep a streak of 4 games in a row with a sack to start the year. You go back to the playoffs, 6.5 sacks last 6 games. I could see him making a play or two in this game for sure.
All right, Grant, does the team end the day at 3-1, or do they get their second loss of the year?
Everyone's been kind of crushing me for this. I think they win today. I actually do.
Attaboy,
I think they win. Yeah, I think they win 20-17. This is where this is going to be an oxymoron, what I'm about to say. The Commanders are going to win a game that comes down to a field goal, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But that's kind of how I feel, like a late fourth quarter-ish, ugly, both teams have a shot kind of game, and I think they emerge victorious. Maybe I'm putting too much weight on what the Falcons looked like last week, but it was pretty ugly. Yeah. And I think that even with the pieces they're missing, Washington will be able to make just enough plays.
All right, Jeeps.
Grant, appreciate the time as always. Enjoy the Coke Zero. Enjoy the football game football games, plural, for the next 12 hours here.
Yeah, a couple of quick house cleaning things really quickly as I say goodbye. Number 1, sorry about the timing. Next time I'll be home from the grocery store when you call. Number 2, my daughter tried to tell me 15 times while I was talking during the interview that she did know Kirk Cousins was on Atlanta. So I want to clear that up. She was very upset about that. So I didn't know that throwing her under the bus was going to be such a big deal. I'll hear about that later. And then the listener that came up to me right as we started the interview in the Sean Taylor jersey, who's hopefully listening driving home right now from Food Lion, I just kind of no-sold him and gave him a wave because we were live on the radio. Yeah. But I apologize, but hopefully you enjoy your game day.
There we go.
That is Grant Paulson, man of the people. Yes, Grant, indeed. We appreciate it. You can hear Grant tomorrow breaking this thing down 2 to 6:30 p.m. On 106.7 as a part of Grant and Danny. He'll also be live on YouTube with Pregame with Logan Paulson after this one as well. Now, when we get back, you and I will make our predictions. Can Washington get to 3-1 with a win over Atlanta? We're live from Honor Brewery in Fairfax. They got great game day specials on food and drinks.
Anyone that's watching on the stream, the couple hundred people that we have, this is why you come to Honor Brewing, is to see this.
I mean, they just dropped our wings off. Lynnell and I were gawking at them when they dropped off. So we give our predictions when we get back here on Burgundy and Gold pregame. Less than 10 minutes from kickoff, Lynnell. It's the Burgundy Gold pregame show. He is Lynnell Willingham. I'm Denton Day. We're live from Honor Brewery in Fairfax. I convinced Lynnell to get some of these hot wings, so he's going to be enjoying these once the game is underway. How are you feeling 10 minutes away? We've had some guys come on and pick the team to win. We've had some guys come on and pick the game to lose. You've been pretty steadfast. You think this is going to be a good day for Washington despite some of the injuries. How are you feeling now?
Well, I don't feel as good now that I see Kelly Green walking in the building. Those snobby Eagle fans in attendance here this afternoon. But no, I've been confident really all week long. I think in 2 out of the first 3 weeks, Washington's done an excellent job really controlling the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football. The offensive line has led them to have the best running game in the NFL through 3 weeks. And then this defense, led by Dorrance Armstrong and Kinlaw and Payne, have been kicking ass and taking names. I expect that to continue here this afternoon.
So do you have an official prediction? And maybe I have bet Coulson Yankoff at a 40-1 touchdown, so I am optimistic that maybe that new bit can continue. But do you have a touchdown score and an official prediction for this game today?
I'll go with the touchdown score. It feels like Marcus Mariota, revenge game number 2 for him. He scored last weekend.
This is also a real revenge game,
this
by
is
the
a
way.
real one. Yeah,
Raiders, because the way that was ended, that relationship ended, was not positive. It was done on television as well, which only makes it worse. This is a real revenge game.
Yeah, totally. As the Kelly Green continues to get closer to us and scratching and itching as Eagles fans walk into this place. But I think the touchdown score is going to be Marcus Mariota. I think Washington wins it by a score of 27 to 14. I think it's a
big win. A big win. So I'm with you in the fact that I think Washington wins the football game. So I'll get that out of the way. I think Washington wins it. I have been paying attention to the movement of the line because that's just kind of how I operate, the lens that I view this through. But I do think Washington wins, and I think they win because Chris Rodriguez has a big game. The run game is going to be very, very important. They don't have a lot of the playmakers on the outside. It's not that they have bad guys on the outside. I still think there's talent out there. But when you don't have Terry McLaurin, you don't have Noah Brown, it makes it a lot easier for the opposing defense to really key in on shutting down Deebo Samuel. And I think they're going to rely heavily on the run game, and I think Chris Rodriguez is going to be the big player in that. So I have Chris Rodriguez having a really big game, Lynnell, and I think Washington's going to win this one by a score of 24-20. You can't fake desperation. Atlanta is a desperate team, but with the amount of injuries that Washington has, so are they. Yeah, so the one thing that's been missing in this conversation this entire week is Atlanta got beat 30-0 against a bad Carolina Panthers team. They're the only one that's desperate. You got a backup quarterback in. You're going with a wide receiver 3 or 4 as wide receiver 2 today because of all the injuries. You got injuries on defense as well. Washington is just as desperate in my eyes as Atlanta is, so I think Washington wins this 24-20.
I agree with you. And then look at this. You're exiting the month of September with a record of 3-1 going into the meat and tough part of your schedule.
And that would be as good as it can get here. He's Lynnell Willingham. I'm Denton Day. That's it for the pregame show. We'll be back at halftime on Twitter and YouTube, postgame on Twitter and YouTube as well. Enjoy the game. We're out of here.